We have a grotesque and immoral distribution of wealth and income. Mike Bloomberg owns more wealth than the bottom 125 million Americans. That's wrong. That's immoral.
Income inequality has become a major issue within the Democratic Party, especially in the progressive lane. You saw Elizabeth Warren, who really based a lot of her campaign on closing that income inequality gap. So has Bernie Sanders. So it's really been one of their primary issues going forward. And you've seen the progressives in the race, Bernie Sanders, use it to attack candidates like Joe Biden or the former Democratic candidate Pete Buttigieg.
Now, there's a real competition going on up here. My good friend Joe, and he is a good friend, he's received contributions from 44 billionaires. Pete, on the other hand, is trailing. Pete, you only got 39 billionaires.
Bernie Sanders has used it as, obviously he wants to close the income inequality gap, but he's also used it to be relatable to voters and find an issue that is very close to their hearts.
To me, it's not surprising that we see a pretty even split between people that think the economy is fair versus unfair. What I do think is interesting is actually a majority of people are really somewhat in the middle here. They're either answering it's somewhat fair or somewhat unfair. So I think they're not really sure, right? If you ask about the entire economic system, that's a very large concept. I think what we need to be talking about here is how people feel about their day-to-day and whether things are working for them. Those so-called pocketbook issues, is the cost of gas rising or the cost of groceries high? But basically, when you ask people about the economy and whether it's working for them, this is something that Ipsos has been tracking over time. And we've asked a similar question about whether people feel that the economy is rigged in advantage of the rich and powerful. And for that, we've been actually tracking this since 2015, around the rise of Donald Trump, because I think, his campaign started speaking to a lot of that. And we've seen some other presidential candidates try and address that feeling of unfairness or inequality. And we've actually seen, when you frame it that way, the economy being rigged, a vast majority of Americans, nearly 2/3, and this has been consistent over time, believe that the economy is rigged to favor the rich and powerful. Now, one thing that I think is interesting here is that there is a pretty big partisan divide on this question. Most Democrats say that the economy is rigged, and we saw that in this polling too. Most Democrats feel that the economy is unfair, whereas most Republicans tend to feel that things are okay, things are fair, things are not rigged, however you want to look at it. And I think that really speaks to the political climate right now, as well as the messaging that Democrats are hearing from the presidential candidates. So if you're a Republican, you hear President Trump talking about how the economy is doing well, consumer confidence is up, the stock market, until the coronavirus outbreak, of course, had been doing okay. And there's a general level of confidence and feeling like the system is working as it should. Now, on the Democratic side, there is definitely, I think, a higher level of both animosity and anxiety about that, where they do feel that there is a deeper gulf of income inequality developing. And they don't buy into the fact that the economy is doing well. That's something that you're also hearing from Joe Biden, from especially Bernie Sanders, especially Elizabeth Warren, before she announced that she was ending her candidacy. There is definitely messaging on the Democratic side that supports this idea that the economy is not fair to people like me, the economy is rigged against me, however you want to phrase it.